Thank you so much to all three of you today. It's just so great. And Kui, I'm going to jump right in with a question to you. I think I need to mention that I think you made this film specifically for me. So thank you in advance. It's this great generational story with bits of 50s sci-fi and that Jules Verne kind of story with shades of focuses on conservation. Did I kind of nail some of those themes that you're working on?
Yeah. I mean, when Don and I started working on this film, we asked many times, what would Craig McFarlane think? And so, like that was a main motivator. So I'm glad that you caught on to this because, like, it's hard to like hit the target, and we're glad we were able to hit it. So,
You know that I'm going to clip that for the rest of my life now. So thank you. I really do appreciate that. Now, Don, I'm a Quad City boy. So I was born and raised there. And it was mentioned in the press presentation that your early life in Iowa was inspiration for this film. Can you kind of elaborate that for our Midwestern audience?
Yeah, big time. My dad is a farmer. He's farmed corn and soybeans because that's Iowa. It's essentially a state of corn and soybeans. And he's been a farmer his whole life actually. So I knew that world pretty well, and obviously in that world I was doing I was being taught the ways of the farm, if you will, and it at a certain point, much like Ethan in the story, it came to a point in my life where it's like, well, I don't know if that's my path. I think I have a different path, essentially following this Disney dream. And so, that was a kind of an inflection point in my personal story that I wanted to kind of bring into this one.
That's so great. And we are fortunate that you did forge that path out to Disney. Now, Roy, I have a tangent here for just a second, and that is that when I got the press materials for this, I didn't look and see who exactly was doing the voiceover. And all of a sudden, I thought it was John Hamm. So I think you might have a future in podcasting, audiobooks, something like that. But I do want to mention that Amy said earlier that Treasure Planet was an inspiration for this. You were, of course, intimately involved as a producer of that film as well. Do you draw that distinction, or do you see those inspirations into this movie?
I think Treasure Planet is a fun adventure film, but aside from being an adventure film, this is really the brainchild of Don. Don came up with the concept, and he creates these wonderful worlds. I worked with him on Big Hero 6. San Francisco was such I felt an amazing world. And I think he outdid himself on this one because, both Avalonia, the upper world, and Strange World, the lower world, are places people have never been, but probably want to go.
Absolutely. A quick follow-up to that. You've gotten to work in Disney, sort of both in what we'd consider the end of the Disney Renaissance, but then also in the modern era. And I'm wondering how the two periods of film have differed in your opinion.
Well, it's interesting because I came in with hand-drawn animation, as did Don, for that matter, and seeing that transition into digital. And I have to say, I love both, but there's something about CG animation where you can get, just a bigger palette in a certain sense. Yeah. And there's a specificity of emotion, and it's kind of a magic world. And I have to say I've loved the whole evolution. Each film is always different.
That's great. This next question I do want to pose to both Don and Kui, so I'll take Don first. You both mentioned that your fathers, and several times during the press events, you've said that had an impact on you when creating this story. And I'm wondering if you could give us a peek behind the curtain a little bit at maybe a real life instance of something you experienced as a dad that would make it into the story ultimately.
Well, I mean, I kind of went into the being the son of a farmer and realizing that wasn't my path. So that was definitely one aspect. As far as the kids go, Ethan, in our world of Avalonia, we don't really have digital technology. You didn't see that much in the trailers and stuff like that, but it's a bit of a kind of retro future vibe. And so for Ethan, we were looking like, to make him relatable. It felt like he needed, like, what do kids now? What do they do? And I know my kids are both super giant gamers, and that's all they do. And so how do we do that with Ethan without the idea of digital technology in the video game? So we came up with this tabletop card game called Primal Outpost. that Ethan and his friends are super into. And it was really fun because the story, everybody got involved and kind of mapped out this game. Like it is not a shallow dive that we did with this. Like we mapped it out. We know how to play it. It could be a real game. And I guess that's something that, hopefully kids would appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. And actually, I just talked to Merdad about his experience in video gaming and how that was drawn into the film too. So it's really cool that you also incorporated it in that way. Now, Kui, same question to you. Is there a real life experience that you have as a father that while you're writing this story, you're like, oh yeah, this is something dads know and we can put this into this film?
Well, I mean, I think it encompasses both Jaeger, Searcher, and Ethan. It's that's simple thing of like generationally how different they are. Like Don and I are definitely Gen X, and Searcher kind of reflects that, and Jaeger is definitely of an older generation that probably isn't as effusive, and then Ethan is younger than them both, and definitely being the kid of an older dad, immigrant dad at that. There's been many a time when I was like, "Hey, Dad, I love you." He's like, "Thanks." No, Dad, I love you. Dad, I love you. But I know he loves me, but he just won't ever say it. And so I make up for that by saying I love you way too much to my 13-year-old, who's very much like, Dad, I know. No, Sam, I love you, buddy. Come here. He's like, "Good." So like it's interesting, but I think in a small way, Searcher is very much me and Don, that guy in the middle who's like a little bit more effusive than needed, and our kids are probably very much like Ethan, and probably our dads are a little bit like Jaeger in that context.
As a father of a 6-year-old that I can't wait to bring to this movie, it just makes me that much more excited, to be able to hear that and totally get that. It's like almost, I didn't tell you I love you today, so come on, like I need to tell you, right? But you two are also both coming off of story writing in the screenplay for Raya and the Last Dragon, and I'm wondering if it's interesting in this way. I've been asking this of a lot of the creatives that you're going off world with this. So is it more freeing as an artist that you aren't necessarily drawn to a specific cultural time frame or something like that? And I'll go to Kui first, and then I'll go to Don.
Well, I mean, I think the one fun thing about it is like when you're with Strange World it was a world that we get to create from the top to bottom, right? Like everything gets to be made up, which means even the rules of reality gets to be bent. And as a person who loves like big imaginative stories, that was a big joy in creating Strange World. The challenge of that, of course, is there are no rules, which then makes it hard because it can get sprawling. And so there's challenges when it comes to that too. But it was definitely really nice to be able to go from something so realistic like Raya, that though it had dragon stuff, the world there was something we get. Grass is grass, trees are trees, water is water, and then getting to go to someplace like Strange World where the title says it all.
That's great. And Don, do you have anything to add there?
100%. And I knew that, that was the potential of the premise, right? And it was baked in very early on that we were going to go to this underneath world. And what could it be? I knew that I didn't have to solve every problem. I just had to set up a scenario and let the imaginations of all the super amazing, talented people here and let them run wild and encourage them to run wild. And when it was weird, say, yeah, but let's go weirder and see where that goes. And I have to say, it's the final result is beyond what I ever could have imagined. And it's something we're so excited for people to see, just for its sheer originality alone.
That's great. Now, Roy, I also get hints of conservation in this. And what I love that Disney does as a company, whether that's adding that fifth key of inclusion or it's showing that representation truly matters on screen, it's sort of allowing for not beaten over your head types of social message, but important things in the cultural ethos to get out there in a film as well. And so I'm wondering if you had any comments on that aspect of this film and how that relates to Strange World.
Yeah, I have the great pleasure of also working on the Disney Nature label, where we're telling stories from nature, and in many ways, this is an it extenuates. That's the word. I believe it is. That kind of storytelling, because really, my belief is that you tell stories, and it goes through the heart into the head. You understand what a message is if you understand what the feeling is. And this film is full of heart, and it's full of humor, and it's the humor opens it, and the heart is just, ready for a story like this.
That's so great. Now, Don, you've been working on this project for a long time. How's that excitement, anticipation feeling for you getting closer to the premiere?
Oh, so excited. And even this week, since D23, when we had the early teaser, but then D23, we shared a bunch more. And then this week we're sharing more. And just getting that feedback, it's so nourishing for us because we've been holding on to it for a while. And to be able to just see people's reaction to just this much of it, by the way, just this much of it, there's so much more. It's been really gratifying. And for Kui and I both, we're a little slightly depleted, Raya and this back to back, we're a little depleted. So it kind of nourishes us during this final stretch to really and just, enjoy this because we're so excited for everybody to see it.
Of course. Roy, you had something to add?
Well, Don Queen and I just came off the score stage.
Yes.
With Henry Jackman, who's doing the score. It is so amazing. It is so beautiful, and it's so big. And I have to say, one of the touchstones of when you're coming to the end of your film is when you get on that score stage. And it is the most joyous of experiences because all of a sudden you hear 100-piece orchestra illustrating your film sonically. And it's been just stunning. And I can't wait for people to hear the score with the visuals.
Yeah, to brag on Henry just a little bit, like his score is so good that like Don and I have been driving around our cars, listening to the demo tracks of it.
Oh, that's great.
You remind, as Don's favorite stories to tell is like when he was a kid, like putting on the Star Wars records to play Star Wars. Like the exciting part of this is kids can put on Strange World to play Strange World because Henry's music is just riveting. It's just so big and classic.
And to lead this team of artists and animators and world builders and that art and creativity. I'm going into my last question here, but just thank you for that art and creativity because we all need it. And we are all going to experience and enjoy it in this November. So my last question is a fun one. I've been giving it to everyone. So I'll start with Kui and then I'll go from there. So favorite adventure story. This is an adventure story you've written. So favorite adventure story could be a novel, could be a movie, TV series. You go for it. But what's your favorite adventure story?
So I don't take it away from Don. I'm not going to say Raiders of the Lost Ark because I know that's his favorite.
I had another one ready to go in case you did.
But I think when it comes down to it, the one that I always go to, still a day in and day out, that I was excited to share with my kids, that hopefully people feel the same way about Strange World, was the Goonies. I love.
Oh yes, that's so perfect.
That's my favorite.
That's so perfect. Don?
Raiders of the Lost Ark, hands down. I saw it, when I was a kid, and I had wanted to be an archaeologist before that, and then that movie made archaeology seem even cooler. And obviously I went in a different, I wanted to be in animation too, but that movie had a profound impact on me.
That's great. Sean mentioned the same exact thing too, just a minute ago. So Roy, how about you? Favorite adventure story?
This kind of crosses genres in a certain sense. When I was a kid, I read Princess of Mars, which is an amazing adventure story. And at the same time, it's got a little bit of sci-fi in there as well. And I love Burroughs. I think it's great.
Well, that's so great. And I really thank you all for your time. Just know that in November, there's going to be a father and son sitting in a movie theater in Central Illinois, just watching your work come to life. And it's just going to be great. My last thing to say before I head out of here is, Don, as a Disney Parks fan, Meet the Robinsons does not get the credit it deserves. That is a masterpiece film. So congrats on that too. So anyway,
thank you so much.
I hope you have a good rest of your day, everybody, and enjoy the film when it comes to that premiere.
Thank you so much.